Hello there, my name is Daniel Hyams and this is a brand new show on Cable 14 called Coming to Hamilton. This is the third episode, and before I introduce today's show, I want to refer you to the last episode that we did in March. And for those of you who saw that show, I introduced Shiona Della Forte, and she is here on a short-term work visa from England. And we talked about her trying to find employment and trying to get more involved in the community so that she could apply for a bridging visa in order to stay in Canada and stay in Hamilton. And I found out a few days ago some wonderful news that I thought I'd share with you. And that is that from her being on this show, we had some community members that reached out to her directly. And to cut a long story short, we found a resolution in the visa requirements that means that with luck, there's still a way to go, but with luck, she will be able to stay in Canada and will be able to make a new life for herself in Hamilton, hopefully on a permanent basis. So thank you to all of the community members that came forward, that really stepped up and showed us what this community is all about, which is about pulling together and supporting one another. So I would like to thank you for doing that for Shiona, and I'll keep you posted with how she's doing. On to today's show. Now, I've had quite a few people come to me and say, your show's about immigrants and it's about immigration. And I think to myself, that's not entirely true. And I do wonder whether the term newcomer is synonymous with immigrant. And that's not correct, but I understand why that association has been made. So today I wanted to introduce to you someone who is Canadian, born in Canada, from Ontario, is in Hamilton, decided to move to Hamilton, and find out why she came to Hamilton. Lorraine Carter.
Thank you very much, Daniel.
Welcome. So before we actually talk about what you're doing here, I have to just share a really wonderful story, because I'm a firm believer that everything is meant to be, and what happens is part of something. We just don't necessarily know what it is. And there was a night a few months ago that I was supposed to go to Radius on James Street South.
Right.
I couldn't go, and two of my friends were bugging me to go. And in the end, I gave up. I said, okay, I'll just pop in and see you, just say a quick hello. And I met you. So if I hadn't gone to Radius by my friends twisting my arm, we'd potentially never have met. So
it's a fabulous story in that it was one of those moments of synchronicity. In fact, I think I went to Radius that night because I have a son that was incredibly enthusiastic about the Blue Jays. And I happened to say, oh, you know what? I think I'm going to go have supper, catch part of the game. And then at the table next, there was yourself, Daniel, and your colleagues. And we just came to have conversation and a friendship thereafter.
And I'm so pleased because I've loved getting to know you, and I thought I have to ask you to be on this show.
Well, I'm delighted to be here without question.
So tell us, Lorraine, what brought you to Hamilton, and tell us a little bit about where you're from.
Thank you. We relocated, my husband and I relocated from Northern Ontario. In particular, I regard Sudbury to be home. I have lived in North Bay, but Sudbury is home. So there was a work opportunity that was just a tremendous one for me through the university. So I've come to fulfill the role of director in the Centre for Continuing Education.
Congrats.
At MAC. But more than that, it was an opportunity to live in a new part of Ontario. And our two adult children who are in Canada, we have a third who's overseas, are in Toronto. So we came for work. Family, though, it's also that which is really positive there, and discovered a pretty phenomenal city. Very much so.
I'm very interested to hear what Sudburyans, is that what they call them, Sudburyans? That's a bit of a guess. But I'm interested to hear what Sudburyans had to say to you when you told friends and neighbours and colleagues that you were moving to Hamilton.
Well, that's a very interesting question, in that Sudbury has many of the same reputational perceptions out in the world. Sudbury is the nickel capital of the world, and so I was moving from, if you will, Rock City to the Hammer, to Steel Town. And it was, really? You're going to do that? And my response was absolutely yes.
Was there any, I'd love to hear a positive and I'd love to hear a negative, because I think it's important that we hear what other populations are saying about us, what their assumptions are.
Yeah, the assumptions, I think, are just that. They're assumptions based on what you see as you come by on the highway, in that this is an industrial city, and where is the arts and culture piece? Well, they need to get off the highway and come in, because it's there plenty, without question. And then I think the reality is that people know that Hamilton, like many other industrial cities, including Sudbury, has comes and goes, has ups and downs. Alternatively, though, I have had opportunity before the move to talk to colleagues, and they said, there's something happening in Hamilton, and I listened hard, asked lots of questions, and came to be informed about a city that's really coming into a new stage in its evolution.
So they're hearing about the revitalisation on the other side of Ontario.
Absolutely. The negative part is that it absolutely does affect things like real estate. Alternately, though, the opportunity to engage in a city where there is a dynamic arts and culture scene, where there is education and research happening at a very high level, where there's proximity to the famous GTA as well as to the beautiful Niagara region. Those are wonderful things.
So you talked about the development in research, and you're part of an education institution. And Hamilton has quite a few educational institutions. So what's your view on the growth of education in Hamilton and the changes of the population that brings in terms of students and graduate students coming in and settling for a couple of years or even probably a couple of months?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think Hamilton has much happening on that particular front. There's the long and proud tradition of McMaster University, for sure. Likewise, though, we have dynamic work happening at Mohawk College and any number of other kinds of institutional institutions in the city. I think it's going to hold its own and only become more exciting. In terms of what I see happening in post-secondary education, I think that Hamilton is a city that is used to making things happen in different forms and in different iterations. The kinds of learners, students, if you will, that Hamilton is going to be able to serve, absolutely the traditional student that would come to college or come to university, but also those adult learners, whether they be new Canadians, whether they be individuals who have had to make choices in terms of their work lives and coming back to school for new skills.
Now, you are the past president of the Canadian Association of, and then this is the point where I forget what the title is.
Canadian Association of University Continuing Education.
So you obviously connect with a lot of other directors in other universities in other parts of the country. So what are you noticing in terms of Hamilton being an educational city compared to other major cities in Canada?
Okay. What I am seeing is that Hamilton is deeply committed to adult learning and to professional learning. I have mixed views on the credentialism that does seem to be happening in terms of professional education. I would say, though, that Hamilton is responsive to that. Likewise, I think in terms of those individuals who come with maybe an absence from high school of some time, perhaps a new person to Canada, I think it's doing very well in responding. There's much more work to do, but well in responding in those areas too.
Are you noticing that there are a lot of what we call in Britain mature students, so really people over the age of 30 going back to university or even going into education, postgraduate education, with no educational background, perhaps because they left school and that wasn't necessary 20, 30 years ago?
Absolutely. The group that we serve, and this is not really about McMaster continuing ed, but the group that we serve is definitely that particular crowd from 25, 30 through to 45. Yeah. And many of them have degrees, but by no means all of them. It's probably an increase, I'm going to say, in the individual who does not have a whole lot of education saying, I need to get this. And so we offer that kind of opportunity to people.
And I'm glad that you do, because McMaster is a wonderful university. The downtown campus is superb, the one in Jackson Mall. So your job, you relocated to Hamilton for the job, but you chose to live in Hamilton. You could have lived in Burlington, St Catherine's, Grimsby, Cambridge, you know, there's probably a half a dozen cities in commutable distance, but you chose Hamilton to live in. Tell us what made you make that decision.
It was a thoughtful one, and yet at the same time you make those decisions and then you hang on and hope it was a good one. I did want to be within striking distance of work, to be able to go to work within 15 to 20 minutes tops. I am a northerner and the cities are smaller, therefore 10-15 minutes is a really nice driving time to work and back. But I think more importantly, it was important to me to get to know and to participate in this city where things are happening. There is tremendous opportunity for arts and culture here.
Do you think that because you work here and that you also live here, it makes you more willing and more interested to go out and find out what's going on and find out what's this and where's that?
Absolutely. I know colleagues who are just wonderful people who care about Hamilton, but they do go home at the end of the day to Brantford or to Burlington. But when you live here, you read the paper, you explore, you have your meals out in the local restaurants, and you simply meet
That's
people.
how we met.
Exactly.
That's how we met.
We're back to the beginning.
So that's it's serendipity,
circle.
I absolutely think, because
Absolutely.
There's something really wonderful about this small, large city that people's paths do cross. I mean, it's something, I come from London, and it very, very, very rarely happens in London. If it does, then there's a reason why. It's a very odd experience when you do keep bumping into the same people. But here, we bumped into each other, and what's really wonderful is that not only are you here working, but you're creating so much for the community, I think.
Well, we're doing, I think, good work in terms of the centre, but I personally am committed to trying to make a bit of a difference in my own way. And I will say that the city as a whole, no doubt there were corners I haven't met and haven't experienced anything particularly negative. I would say as a whole, this is a very collaborative, very warm place to be. It's got heart.
Thank you so much, Lorraine.
I'm
so glad that we met, honestly.
Oh, me too, Daniel. A pleasure.
It really has made my life so much better knowing you. So thank you for being here. I really appreciate your time. When we come back after the break, we're going to talk to a representative from the Hamilton Chamber of Commerce, and we're going to flip things up a little bit and talk about businesses coming to Hamilton. We'll see you in a few minutes. Take care. Welcome back. Episode 3 of Coming to Hamilton this is. I am Daniel Hyams, and this is a brand new show on Cable 14 that introduces the community to people who have decided to move and settle in Hamilton. But I wanted to go in a slightly different direction at this part of the show and talk about businesses coming to Hamilton. And who better to ask than the membership manager of the Hamilton Chamber of Commerce, Kofu Owolabi.
Hi Daniel, how are you?
Very well, thank you for being here. Now, before we talk a little bit about the Chamber, I want to hear about you. And a few weeks ago, you were telling me a marvellous story that took place in my home city of London, England, and how you heard about Hamilton. So just share with us that one.
Yeah, really, it was just, we're there to visit a mutual family and friend, and my parents were just talking about education in general. It's something that we hold really in high esteem in Nigeria, and our family friend mentioned we're talking different countries. Usually Nigeria, most people, once they're done that post-secondary grade 12, you're looking at, okay, do I want to stay in Nigeria for university, and if I'm going to go abroad, where do I go? And so it's between the US or you're going to the UK. So vacationing in the UK, I thought, well, sure, I'm gonna apply here. And then a family friend said, hey, did you know that there's this school in Canada called Columbia International College? And that was pretty much where the journey started.
So you heard about Hamilton just by being at friends and family.
Exactly.
In London.
Exactly.
So if they had never said anything.
Yeah. I wouldn't be here, that's for sure.
I mean, it ties in very well with what Lorraine and I were talking about, this sort of what's meant to be in the serendipity of life.
Yeah.
So, Columbia College as a student. Tell us a little bit about the experiences of being a student at Columbia.
Columbia was great. an institution that really, when you go to Columbia, one of the big things you see in their admin office is called total care. And they really embody that. And I think that really encapsulates my entire experience. Coming to a new country, coming to a brand new city. I mean, you have to understand, I'm coming from a tropical country to a country that is literally freezer. I came here in January, literally in the middle of winter. It was a huge change for me. And, being in Colombia, it really helped with transitioning. And that was really what it was. I was coming here really to pursue university education, and Columbia was really that bridge. And it wasn't only from the academic point of view, it was really about integrating you into your new home, Canada. So from things like trips to the leadership camps we would have at Barclay, for example. That was the first time I ever went on anything called camping, which is, again, a Canadian experience. Going to a mall, that wasn't really part of my experience in Nigeria. That was one of the things that I got to enjoy.
So
when I was
it really,
in Colombia.
in some respects, it really forces you to engage in the community.
Yes, and so, and even things like volunteerism, those were the things that were part of that. I was in student council, I was in student leadership at Columbia. We got to do fundraisers for Crime Stoppers. So just all of those things that really make you appreciate community, that definitely was.
Do you think that by being a student at Columbia and being embraced and integrated into the community of Hamilton, that made you want to stay more rather than finish your studies and move to another city or go back to Nigeria or maybe go to another country? Yeah,
it definitely warmed me up to Hamilton. At that stage in my life, really, I didn't even know which city I was going to end up in. The ultimate goal was just, okay, I'm going to pursue university. Mac obviously was one of the options that I considered. But then again, my goal was just really looking for what was the best fit for me, education-wise. And then really, whichever city I ended up in was how it was gonna be. But Hamilton was definitely in the running.
Because I know that you left Columbia, went to the University of Toronto, but then you made a decision to come back to Hamilton as a postgraduate, as now someone going into the workforce. So tell us about that experience of what you did when you came back to Hamilton.
That actually happened to me, honestly, as a blessing. It wasn't even like I made a decision to come back to Hamilton. I was already coming back to Hamilton. I never really severed my ties with Hamilton when I moved to Toronto. So I would always come here, all the major holidays, whenever I had time, like on a weekend when I didn't have a lot of schoolwork to do, I'd be here.
It's about making the choice, isn't it, of coming back?
Exactly. A lot of my friends that I went to Columbia with were at Mac.
Sure.
So it gave me a reason to always come back. So I was still kind of rooted in that kind of friends, family, community. And then when I finished university, a job opportunity in education came up, and it was based in Hamilton.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like, I literally lapped at the opportunity because I'm thinking, yes, I mean, Hamilton is home for me in terms of Canada. This is home.
So we have to fast forward a little bit, but now you currently are the membership manager at the Hamilton Chamber of Commerce.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about that role, because you obviously connect with all businesses and all business owners across the entire city. So just tell us a little bit about what that experience is like.
It's been great. One of the things I really wanted out of my career was to be kind of integrated in the city that I lived in. So I kind of had this whole vision of, work and live in the city, in one city. So that's really what the Chamber is. As an organization, the Chamber is a connector of businesses. We are the convening power of the business community. So in this role, it's really about connecting all the, pieces. And that's really what I do as a membership manager, is looking at, where are the big economic drivers and which part needs to connect with which part. And then we create environments for them to connect. So whether they were small businesses or they're big businesses, those are the kinds of things we do, maintaining those relationships and really making sure that these businesses, when they grow. And that's really I guess our greatest accomplishment at the Chamber is when we see businesses grow.
So let's talk a little bit about the businesses that are coming to Hamilton. IBM was in the newspaper recently.
Yes.
That's a huge company, and I think that personally, I think it's a wonderful thing for the downtown.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about what that means for the local community and local businesses and real estate. What's the knock-on effect of a huge company like IBM partnering with Hamilton Health Sciences?
I think it's a great domino effect. There's a lot of things that come. It's almost like when DeFasco was really the big, huge employer here. Everything flourishes from, one, we have more people. We have already seen that real estate has definitely seen the biggest uptake. Every other business really in the city is going to benefit. If you have a retail store, well, now there is more foot traffic, people who are going to be...
Sure. The knock-on effect is huge because you've got people in the offices, particularly in the it's the Stelco building, I think.
Exactly, the Stelco Tower.
But then, they use the coffee shops, the bars, the hairdressers, the sweet shops, that sounded very English, but you can't get rid of it. I still call it lifts.
It's like if you think about a community, like when you see the developers, for example, building a home, when they're building a whole complex, they're not just putting up buildings. You're thinking about, okay, what parks are going to be there? What shops need to be there? What kind of transportation? So that's really what, that example of IBM coming into town is really going to do for people is, well, now people are going to be living downtown. Well, all those developments and buildings that are going up, people are going to be living there.
It's a good example, I think, of what, and I think it couldn't have come at a better time, of what is actually possible. But what do we need to bring more companies in?
Right.
Or do we want these big companies here?
You know what? Every city needs a good balance. I should also highlight too, one of outside, big companies like IBM's, the huge flux of business development and growth in Hamilton is really Hamiltonians themselves.
Yeah.
If you've ever seen that T-shirt, I can do anything in Hamilton, I think people are really embodying that. So people who are born and bred here, maybe left Hamilton for whatever reason, are now coming back and realizing, wow, home, there's good stuff here. And they're planting roots here and they're starting their own businesses and they're doing very, very well.
Are you finding small business owners, young entrepreneurs are also coming to Hamilton from other parts, perhaps leaving Toronto and Mississauga?
Absolutely. Professionals are really the big people who are moving from the GTA, for example. Standard of living, of course, is much affordable in Hamilton compared to anywhere in the GTA. From where do I live to how do I transport myself? A lot of people are coming from Toronto because they can't afford homes. So they're coming here, and because of our transit system with the GO trains and the GO buses, they're kind of making that direction.
But they're not just working here and commuting from all of these cities.
Some are, and then some are finding opportunities here in Hamilton. And I think that's the kind of nice mix that we're getting. I have met people who moved to Hamilton and they're like, oh, well, I was just going to do the community thing. But then I realized that there were opportunities here. And so now they're working here in Hamilton. So it's great, again, for our business community. For those who are starting businesses, yes, a lot of young professionals that maybe moved here for a job and realized, okay, entrepreneurship is something, or business ownership is something for them. Yes, now they're kind of moving into that space. Co-working spaces is kind of contributing to that.
Yeah.
There's a really big one on King Street Commotion.
Sure.
And so that's been bringing a lot of
We're
people.
going to put the contact details for the Hamilton Chamber up on the screen so that if anyone wants to connect with you and the team there,
they
then
can come
can
for
do.
our Business After Business. It's on April 28th.
April 28th is
Yes,
Business After Business,
that's
and
my
that's
plug.
at, where is it?
Factor E.
Factor E, which is on
Yes,
King William. And
which is right on top of the Mule.
That's the
King
one.
William. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kofa, for being
Thank
here.
you for
I really
having
appreciate
me.
this.
I'm so glad I came.
The topic of today, or there seems to be a common thread, is serendipity and what's meant to be and fate. And I'm a true believer that what's linking me and Kofa and Lorraine and all of us actually meeting is right place, right time. It reminds me of a quote by Goethe that said, in the moment of commitment, the universe assists to bring us together, or something like that. I didn't quote it perfectly. And I think it's absolutely true. And I think that that's one of the wonderful things that Hamilton embodies. In the moment of commitment, it all just comes together. Until next time, have a great day. See you soon. Take care. Bye.